They said the water in this city makes you young. They said it makes you calm. They said it makes you sharp. They called it pure. But there is another saying, quieter, spoken in the market corners and old kitchens. If a tea promises to take your pain, ask what it will leave you with. Madam Pure loved two things, a perfect smile and a perfect bottle. Her name was not always Madam Pure. Some people called her Purity. The newspaper called her a hero. The billboards called her the future. She had a tower of glass downtown. At the foot of that tower, the living truck up every morning. Her bottles were clean. The label was white. The words were simple. Pure. People drank it at the gym. They drank it on their decks. They gave it to children. They took it to the hospital beds. It had a taste that seemed to cut worry. It slid down the throat like a cool light. Madam Pure spoke softly. She smiled wide. She shook her hand with ministers and big people in the community. She gave money to schools. She paid for the clinic roof. Cameras loved her. But in the corners, behind old doors, under the red clothes of a market store, people whispered that the water cost more than money. Ijeoma worked at a small coffee stand on Ada Street. She knew faces. She knew the rhythm of the town. She knew troubles when it came in with the morning crowd. One morning, a young man came in. He had the knock of someone who had been crying. Ijeoma stretched out to ask gently, "Do you want sugar or what?" The young man spoke gently, "Just water, purity water, if you have it." Ijeoma reached for a bottle. It was shiny on the shelf. She handed it to him. He drank and his shoulders dropped. He smiled like someone who had found calm. 3 days later, that same young man could not remember the name of his mother. Ijeoma kept the bottle cap. She had that habit, the habit of keeping things. She held the cap between her fingers. It felt cold. Later that week, the hoteler who sat under the canopy stopped humming the song he had hummed for 30 years. His eyes looked empty, like a basket with all fruit taken. Ijeoma started to notice. Ijeoma said to herself, "Something is wrong." Madam Pure did not start with a towel. She started with a spring. The old woman who owned the spring used to tell stories. The water there was sent by river spirits. It healed fevers. It calms the storm. The spring was small, hidden under the roots and moss. Madam Pure found it. She parted the way to it. She built pipes. She built machines that sang. She bottled the water and gave it a name. Purity. Our water cleans the mind, she would say proudly and smoothly. It brings joy. It brings peace. It brings strength. Bring purity water and the world will be simpler. People like the promise. They bought into the promise. Men who were quick to hunger grew quiet. Women who feared the night slept with steady breaths. The city seemed to run smoother. Madam Pure smiled on the billboard. Her name became a prayer. But peace came at a price. Little things began to slip away. Children stopped asking why. Lovers forget fights. Hot stories began to fade like chairs in the rain. At first, the changes were small. A neighbor who had once shouted at a driver, now watched him go and did not care. A teacher found half of the class could not tell the story of how apple tree was planted. They could not remember the farmer's name. Ijeoma wrote all of it down. She made the list. She kept the bottle caps. She watched the town. One evening, she met Shola, a market boy who liked riddles. He came to her stand, breathless. Shola whispered, "Did you see? Old Mama Bisi woke up with the name of her first child forgotten." Ijeoma was shocked. As she replied, "She forgot?" Shola continued talking. It was like the name fell out of her mouth and rolled down the market table. No one could find it. They laughed at first. Then they stopped laughing. They both felt a cold where her name should be. There was a man who kept stories. It was called Grot. It lives near the river. It said the town people were stitching their life with thread. It warned that the thread pulled matters when you talk too hard. It told the story. Long ago, the river made a bargain with a village. The river gave life to their crops. In return, the villagers vowed to tell a story every harvest. Stories filled the river. When the story stopped, the river took back what it had given. The people laughed. They had many problems to think of the whole baggage. But God's eyes were like inside of a well. A new weight. Ijeoma went to him one night. The market was empty. The moon was a black coin. God, Ijeoma said, "Do you know anything about Madame Pure?" God replied softly, "I have seen bottles and bright labels. I have heard of purity water. Be careful, child. A thing that takes grief must put it somewhere. Ask somewhere. Ask somewhere." The word struck in Ijeoma's like a thorn. Ijeoma watched more. People who drank the water stopped keeping old huts. Women forget names. Young men walked home like shadows. The city filled into neat lies. One late afternoon, Ijeoma saw a man drop his wallet. He went on. No one called him back. The wallet laid on the ground like a small highland. She began to follow the supply route. She asked small questions. At the plant gate, men in blue vests smiled and said, "We are understaffed." At the delivery hub, a driver laughed and said, "Madame Pure kept the town safe." Madame Pure did not hide much. She stood on stage and named projects. She adopted a child, and the city loved her for it. The child was always close. People said the child smiled like the water itself, calm, small, perfect in photograph. In the evening, she walked the factory floor. She watched the machines. She patted the bottles. Her eyes were bright. She said thank you to the workers. Madame Pure would say warm, "We are changing lives. It is not a crime to make the world softer," she would say. But sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, Madame Pure would go into a room. Inside that room were glass cases. Inside the glass cases were tiny lights. They moved like moths. Some were loud, with colors. Others were small, pale as dust. Madame Pure walked between them. She touched the glass. She smelled like someone who kept secret spoons in her pocket. Ijeoma and Shola wanted to see. They could not stand the quiet the community had become. They wanted noise, tears, arguments. They wanted life. One stormy night, they climbed the back fence of the company. They moved like two cats. The cats were asleep with cigarettes. The back door was unlocked. The smell inside was cold and clean. "This way," Ijeoma whispered. They followed the pipes, past the noise of bottling. The machines were like sleeping army. Then they found the secret room. They peered in. There were rows and rows of jars. Inside each jar floated a small light. Some looked like sparks. Others looked like faces caught in a sea of glass. Shola whispered to Ijeoma, "Look, they are like little people." One jar glowed blue. In it, a small child light spawned slowly. Ijeoma's throat closed. As she said softly, "It looked like a laugh." The light stirred. While they moved, one walker passed. One light leaned towards the glass, as if it knew the owner. Ijeoma reached out. A thin voice, not human, not machine, said, "Don't." Ijeoma and Shola were scared. They jumped. Immediately, a slow scary sound started. Their feet became cold as they ran away. They escaped with one jar left. The jar was empty. The light had gone out and slid into the night. Madame Pure is taking pieces of people. She stored them into a jar. For what? They said the truth like a crack into the head. The bottles made people calm by taking away the things that make them human. The pain, yes, but also the memory, the hunger, the stories, the shame. Madame Pure bottled those pieces and kept them like trophies. Why did Madame Pure do this? People said she was greedy. Some said she was cruel. Others said she was a businesswoman doing what businesswomen do. But there is another story, one whispered by those who were close to her, told in low voices by the workers there, especially the cleaners. They said she had a child was a boy. He fell into the river when he was small. She went at a meeting. The river took him. She gave everything to forget. She gave her days to build the company. She gave her nights to make the water sharper. She poured money into the town to keep the fun of her name. She bottled what the river had taken from her in secret, not water, but the small light that live in people, the heart, the rage, the memory. In the bottle, she made life less heavy. So, Madame Pure learned to take small things from people. A single fear, one heavy memory. She learned how to keep them. She learned how to use those little pieces to make other quieter. It was not quick. It took science and ritual and little money, but it worked. Ijeoma did not want to be a hero. She wanted her names and laughter back. She wanted the tailor to home. She wanted children to sing the old stories. She and Shola and the girls met at night. They planned. They drew maps on papers. The matches box light circled them like a keeper. Said firmly, to free the light is to put back the pain back. This will not be gentle. People who remember will shout. They will fight, they will curse, they will cry. Are you ready? He asked. Ijeoma said sure and quiet. We have been quiet too long. So they decided to take one jar and opened it in the market on the busiest day. Let the town see, let the town feel. If people choose peace without cause, they will choose it again. But now they would know. The market day was thunder. People from the town and beyond came to buy and to shout and to bargain. Stalls to stalls, the noise rose. Ijeoma stood on the crate. She held the jar in her hand. Her heart beat like drum. Ijeoma said loud, listen, you all drink and smile and forget. Look what they keep inside their tower. She opened the jar. A small light like steam popped out. It traveled into the sky and then it landed in the chest of an old man who had been selling fish. The man gasped. Tears came out of his eyes. Suddenly, he remembered his wife, the name, the way he used to fish. He began to sing. The song rose like fire. The song woke others. Here, a woman flinched and then remembered the face of the man who had stolen from her. People who had been calm, as stone began to move with feelings. Madame Pure came. She came with a reporter, and he smiled at the blade. She pressed her hand together and watched the people. Her face was calm, but her eyes was flames. Madame Pure said coldly to Ijeoma, you opened something that was held in care. We kept what hurt, so you could live. Do you not want peace? She said. An old man shouted, your peace is empty. You took our stories. You hid them like hoys. Madame Pure replied steady, you paid for peace with what you wanted to forget. I only kept your sharp things safe. Our guards moved in. They lifted the crates. They took the jars back towards the truck. People tried to stop them. Chaos bubbled. The market splitted into two seas. Ijeoma pushed through. She reached for the jar. Her hand caught her wrist. Madame Pure said softly, child, the word is mercy. Not everyone can carry heavy hearts. Ijeoma replied angrily, you stole from us. Madame Pure looked at Ijeoma for a moment. Her mind cracked. Something small shook in her eyes. I lost my son, she said honestly. I will trade all the city for one chance to hold him again. The jaws are closest thing I have to hold something. Do you think I want to be cruel? She asked. People listened. Some felt pity. Some felt rage. Madame Pure offered a deal. Her voice was honest and iron. Give me back the job. Let me keep the one I need. I will give you clinics, school, work, or let me open them, and the city will be broken for a time. Pains will come back in force. She put her hand on the child, and the light inside shivered. People are choosing. A market woman looked at her child. She drank a bottle and smiled. In her smile was no grief, no worry. Her hand held the child's. She looked at the jaw and then at her child's face. I don't know, she said. A young man stepped forward. He had been hungry for months at his boss. He had drunk purity water each day to sleep easier. He looked at Ijeoma and said, I want to remember. I want to be myself with all bad parts. Others stepped back. Fear pulled at them. For some, the bottles was life. For some, the jar was theft. The town trembled like a leaf. Ijeoma could not watch a child pay for a mother's scalp. She snatched the jar from Mother's Pure's hand. The glass hit the ground. It shattered. 100 tin lights flew out like fish in moonlight. They rushed into people. There was a great sound. A sound like rain, and like laughing, and like someone being punched in the chest. People remembered everything. They remember love and theft. They remember both the good and the bad. The market filled with sound of view feeling. Some fell, holding their head. Some embraced. Some staggered into the street and cried. Madame Pure fell to her knees. A child's light moved away from the sheds and hovered above her, small and bright, for the first time since the night at the river. She had feelings. She felt a awe of grief. It rippled open like a open seam. Madame Pure cried. No, no, she shouted. She reached out for the light. She begged. She offered money. She offered the tower. She offered her name. She begged for the small warmth that had been her sword. But the light turned away. This light flew out over the town and settled into different chests, into those who had once drank and forgotten. Ever since that day, the city breathed again. There was a damage. There was truth. People had speak. Old wounds were opened. There were fights and there were confessions. There were cleansing and there were songs. Madame Pure complained. A purity bottled water complaint was closed down. A billboard came down. Lawyers and journalists came. There were hearings. There were apologies. There were arrests. People demanded the judge's return. Ijeoma said, we wanted life, not peace, sold in bottles. Madame Pure disappeared from cameras. They said she left the town. Some said she lived by the riverside now. Some said she lives in a secret room and wept over empty jars. Years later, the town had new bottled water complaint, new names. They sell water with honest hearts, and the people live happier. This is the end of the story. If something promises to make your pain small, ask where the pain will go. Thank you so much for watching the story. Please do not forget to like, share with me in the comment section your thoughts about the story, and please do not forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories like this. See you next time. Bye bye.